I was like, I wasn't trying to solve that. I was just trying to get some extra.
Unless we call labs.
There's no,
The past, it's been, so there was a lot of that.
Good evening, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. It is 6:08. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. All trustees are present except trustee Carpenter, who is excused, trustee Bockhorst, who is excused, and trustee Maher, who should be joining us in a little bit. Our first and only agenda item today is a presentation about the automated meter infrastructure. And I know you have read it in our packet. Is there someone here, do you want to kick it off?
I am going to turn it over to City Water. The mic is right up there. So you just want to introduce yourself and then kick off the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Tom Knight with City Water, and accompanying me here is Jasmine Carter Ward from our company as well. So we appreciate the time today this evening to present to you our meter replacement and advanced meter infrastructure project. Now, if I let's make sure I get the. Oh, uh-oh. There we go. Here we go. Okay, so background on the project. So back in 2013, the Public Service Commission ordered the village to reduce their non-revenue water. Well, what's non-revenue water? That's the amount of water that we're purchasing from Milwaukee minus the amount of water that we're selling to our customers. The difference is called non-revenue water. So PSC, during that time, about 5 years in a row, our non-revenue water here in the village was over 20%. So PSC said, we need you to do something about it. So in 2014, and spilled over into 2015, we did our first non-revenue water project where we did meter testing. We looked at all different sizes of meters in the village. We tested them to see how accurate they were. We put together a non-revenue water team made up of staff with the village here, from billing through staff out in the field and management team. We also did some leak detection. And when we were doing some acoustical leak detection out in the system, we did find a number of leaks that were not surfacing that the village then staff went out and repaired. That number came down for our non-revenue water, so we continued it into a phase 2 project in 2016, where we incorporated some new policies. We also upgraded the meters at the Downer Avenue meter pit in conjunction with the City of Milwaukee. We continued, we did leak detection on the rest of the village. The first leak detection we did was only on a third of the village. The rest was on the other 2/3 of the village. We did find some more water leaks that were not surfacing, and so those were repaired. And we also did, we started talking about a meter replacement project. One of those things, but whenever it comes up with a meter replacement project, is also the meter reading system. So we're kind of looking at both of those projects hand in hand. But the work that we had done, both in phase 1 and phase 2, kind of resulted in the Utility Achievement Award from AWWA this past year. At our annual conference.
Can I just ask a question? On here, I didn't see, I read that we were in non-compliance, and that's why we're mandated now in 2018. By 2018, we were supposed to have done something, and we didn't. So,
well, we were ordered by PSC to work on the non-revenue water. We did get that down under a number that was acceptable for them. The other item there is meter replacement. So after 20 years, you have to replace your water meters. That's part of PSC's code. So as long as, normally it's 10 years. After 10 years, you have to do meter testing every 10 years on your meters. We don't do meter testing here because our water log, non-revenue water number is low enough now where we just have to do meter replacement in 20 years. So once every 20 years, the meters need to be replaced. And so in, I think it was 2016 is when we were starting to look at doing that. And we had about, I'd say it was a little over 30% of meters that were about 20 years or older in the system.
And so we're not in compliance, correct? As of 2016 or 8? I thought it was 8.
Well, yeah, so we do have some meters out there that are older than 20 years old. And when we originally did the meter testing in 2014, 2015, we did pull some meters that were older than 20 years. It just happens that you have some meter systems, it's tough to get into homes, to schedule those appointments. On a couple that we did pull, they actually were still registering pretty accurately. So we have a huge benefit in Lake Michigan right here. It's very soft water, it doesn't have a lot of minerals in it. So meters tend to last a little bit longer than that, but throughout Wisconsin, PSC said no, 20 years is the max that you can go. So,
why is that a 20-year limit? What's the
Well,
impetus behind that?
so when you think about Wisconsin, right, the majority of Wisconsin water is groundwater, and that is higher minerals, higher hardness. And so PSC doesn't have a rule that states, hey, for surface water or for water that is of this constituents, you can go a little bit longer. They just threw a blanket across and said it's 20 years, period. Now that is very aggressive compared to the rest of the country. I can tell you a lot of the other states in the country don't even have a standard like that at all. So there's some states that they're 30, 35 years, and their non-revenue water is well over 20%.
Are we been penalized for not meeting that standard?
Currently, no, there's no order on record right now from PSC that you have to replace the meters. They're older than 20 years. All right. So in 2016, we started the ball rolling on the meter replacement project, looking at also the meter reading system, and then that got put on hold towards the end of the year when some of the numbers came back and we were looking at exactly what we had in front of us to work with. Oops. So here is the meter age of the meters in Shorewood. On the right, you can see the PSC code 185, and highlighted is number 6 down there. When system losses are less than the prescribed percentages, which in this case for an AB utility is 15%, in lieu of testing every meter as required, the utility may satisfy the requirements of this section for 5/8, 3/4, and 1-inch meters by adopting a new meter replacement program that results in each meter being replaced within 20 years of the original installation date. So that's what we've always filed with PSC, that we are on a 20-year change-out program. On the left-hand side, you can see the age of our meters. So I've got it broken down in 5-year increments. Any meter that is 20 years or older, as of this year, is in the magenta color, so that's 44% of our meters are 20 years or older. 15 to 20 years is the next 5-year span, and we have 48% of our meters in the system are fit within that window. Now that 15 to 20 year window, 15 to 20 years old, fits within PSC's depreciation schedule for meters. So anytime that we're in that range, older than 15 years old, we're okay to replace our meters, and we don't have to ask PSC for approval to do so. We're doing it based on their depreciation schedules. And then you can see that only 3% of our system is between 10 to 15 years old, and 5% is less than 10 years old. So when we're looking at doing a meter replacement program, we're really looking at those meters that are 15 years and older for a couple of reasons. One, we're within that window of depreciation schedule for PSC. The other reason is, if we're going to be putting in a meter reading system with this, you really want to try and marry the two systems together because they both last about 20 years. So we don't want to go into a home 1 year and just put in a new meter reading system on it and then have to come back 5 years later to get back in to change the meter out, because you'll see later in the presentation, one of the highest costs for doing this work is actually getting into the home to do the work. So while we're there, let's just do them both, marry them together, and we'll save some costs that way.
Are you talking about commercial and residential throughout this, or just residential?
Commercial and residential, yeah, these are all meters.
But when to do the program, you'd also be doing that other 8%, right? If you're gonna marry them.
The other 8% right now, I'm saying we wouldn't be changing out those meters. Some of those meters are larger meters, so part of that initial testing that we had done, we noticed that there were some larger meters, 3 and 4 inch meters that were pretty old and not very accurate, so we replaced those. And so those are the ones that are kind of in that less than 10-year age group, and I'd say that because they're commercial, it's a little bit easier to get into those places. that a lot of times they just say, we'll continue to use that. If we want to replace them, we can, but we'd have to ask PSC for a special waiver because we would be replacing it outside of that depreciation
Okay.
schedule.
So those would still be read then with handhelds?
No, we can adapt it and put
Or
it
we
in.
can adapt it, okay,
Yep.
okay. And that 8% is all commercial?
It's a mix. There is some
Okay,
meters that have had problems with our touchpads on the outside registering, so the guys go in there and they just replace it while they're in there. Put
okay,
a new meter in.
thanks, sorry.
So when you talk about your meter reading system, what do you have today in Shorewood? So you've got a touchpad walk-by read system. It is kind of the earliest form of what's called AMR, or automatic meter reading, where we don't actually have to go into the home and physically look at the meter to get a reading. So on the left, you see we've got our meter. It has a wire connected to it that runs to a touchpad system. That touchpad then is mounted on the outside of every home here in the village of Shorewood and on businesses. And we have a meter reader that walks around once a quarter to every home, every business, and they walk up to that touchpad. They've got a wand. It's not a little handheld like it's in the picture. It's a little wand that they put up there. That'll then interrogate down to the meter through that wire. That sends the read back to our handheld that the meter reader has. All the reads then are stored on that handheld, and we bring it back to the village once all the routes are read, and then we can download those reads and put it into our billing system to create our bills. So here's a flow chart of that existing process that we have today. Again, we download all of our meter reading routes and information out of our billing system, which is BSNA. That is connected to, that goes to auto read, which is our meter reading software. That's what gets put onto our handhelds, given to the guys who go out in the field to read the meters at every location. The readers go out, collect the reads via that outside touchpad. They're downloaded to auto read here at the village. We can then do some exception reporting, where if we have meters that have the same read as last quarter, and previously they weren't the same, we can go out there and figure out, hey, what's going on? Maybe that outside touchpad isn't working. We might have some meters that are zero reads, or some meters that didn't read at all, and we want to kind of go back and investigate those as to why that is. If it's a zero read, or if it's a read that hasn't progressed at all, it might be a vacant home. And we might have that on file, and we can say, okay, that was a vacant home, we don't need to go and check it. But our guys generally have a handful of these readings that they have to go back in the field and kind of do rereads to figure out why we're not getting a correct reading. Once the exceptions are cleared, all those reads are then pushed into our billing system, and then bills are created and sent out to our customers. So the two types of meter reading technologies that we're talking about here is, and these are the most prevalent that are in the industry today. The first is AMR, which is called automated meter reading, and that's just a one-way communication technology that collects data from the meter via walk-by or a drive-by. You can put it in a vehicle and drive by and pick up the reads as well. But you're only getting one meter reading per billing cycle. So once every 90 days, we go out, we get a read, we see what the customers use, and that's what we bill them. The other type of technology that is becoming more and more prevalent is advanced metering infrastructure, and that's AMI. That's a two-way data flow between the meter and the staff here in the office, where we can actually interrogate down to the meter from sitting at our desk. We don't have to send somebody out in the field. We can get an on-demand read right from the desk. It'll go right down to the meter, say what's the latest reading, and bring that back to us. So that's that two-way communication flow. It's not only sends from the meter to us, but we can also request from the meter, from our office back down to the meter. And that's probably the biggest difference.
Can I ask a question? Who, is it city water or is it DPW that does our current once every 90-day meter readings?
It's the current DPW water utility. So with an AMI system also, because that meter endpoint sends reads back to us, it sends it back on an hourly basis now. The very earliest versions of AMI, they would only send back like 2 reads per day, but you were getting a daily read. Now all of these systems will send back meter reads once every hour back to the utility. Some of the new technology that's out there is actually sending every 15 minutes. Well, you think about it, right? We were getting 1 data point every 90 days. Now we're going to be getting over 2,000 data points during that 90-day window. So it's a lot more information for us to use and process and figure out how our customers can use their water, or how they are using their water. And PSC, because of that hourly information, all that extra data points that are coming in, PSC really highly recommends utilities to move to this type of technology. They are really pushing for the customers to be able to see how they're using their water so that they can make their own decisions as to how much water that they want to use. And the biggest benefit, we'll talk a little bit about it, is some of these systems, well, all these systems will have advanced warning for leaks inside the home. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So this is the, oh, I went backwards again, didn't I? Sorry. I keep going. Okay, so again, these are some of the benefits with those two types of technologies. AMR, we get the automatic meter reads through handheld drive-by, and it's just that one set metering time. Benefits of AMI, we get the automatic meter reads, it's on a fixed network, it's two-way communication. We don't have to send anybody out in the field anymore. We can get our on-demand data. We can also do data management with our system, and we can also do demand patterning. So we can see how our customers are actually using their water throughout the day if we want to. And it's not that we look at how one customer does, it's all of our customers as a whole.
And why would you do that? I mean, what's the benefit of that?
So Shorewood's a little different. In some utilities, when you have like pumping stations, you have elevated storage towers, you can look at how your customers are using water, and that can help you determine and optimize how you're operating your system. In Shorewood, we don't